Imagine trying to solve one of humanity's biggest mysteries. What did Neanderthals actually sound like? We've all seen artistic recreations of our ancient relatives. Rugged features, powerful builds. But their voices are still shrouded in mystery. Historians and scientists have long debated whether they merely grunted or communicated in ways much closer to our modern language. And this is where things get truly fascinating. Maybe you've caught that viral moment from the BBC programme Neanderthal: The Rebirth, where experts attempt to reconstruct Neanderthal speech. Vocal coach Patsy Rodenberg took on the challenge by referencing a 3D model of a Neanderthal's vocal tract, taking into account anatomical differences such as their deep rib cage, robust skull, and sizable nasal cavities. The experiment? When she guided a human vocalist to mimic what these features might produce, the outcome was a surprisingly high-pitched nasal tone, a far cry from the guttural grunts that movies usually depict. But here's where it gets controversial. Is this truly how Neanderthals sounded, or just one possible interpretation based on limited data? Yet scientists have gone beyond artistic guesswork. Research over the past decade has dramatically shifted our views of Neanderthals. Instead of imagining them as primitive brutes, overwhelming archaeological and genetic evidence now paints a picture of complex, emotionally intelligent people who crafted tools, made art, and perhaps even cared for their elderly and sick. Their brains weren't just large, they were comparable in size, or sometimes even larger, to our own, though differently shaped. This suggests their brains were wired with enough sophistication to handle language, a trait once considered unique to modern humans. Recent breakthroughs got even closer to the heart of the mystery. In 2021, anthropologists digitally reconstructed Neanderthal skulls to study the structures involved in speech and hearing. Astonishingly, they discovered that Neanderthals could perceive and likely produce sounds between 4 to 5 kilohertz, which aligns closely with the frequencies humans use during speech. In other words, their hearing, and probably their vocal capabilities, were finely tuned for complex communication. Does this mean Neanderthals may have enjoyed conversations every bit as intricate as ours? Some experts argue yes, while others remain skeptical. But the debate is far from over. Linguists like Antonio Benitez Barraco from the University of Seville put forward that Neanderthals probably did use language, though it might have been less elaborate in structure and flexibility compared to what we know today. He suggests their speech could have included simpler syntax and fewer word categories, like conjunctions or determiners, and potentially lacked the wide array of sounds that characterize modern languages. Think of it as a simpler, perhaps more direct tongue, still rich in meaning, but not as nuanced as our own. And this is the part most people miss. We have almost no consensus on exactly when advanced language appeared. Some scholars argue it emerged as recently as 50,000 years ago. Others push the timeline back well over 2 million years. Given that Neanderthals lived between roughly 400,000 and 40,000 years ago, there's a big possibility that they existed during a pivotal moment in the evolution of communication. What remains crystal clear is this. The popular image of Neanderthals as mute, shadowy figures couldn't be further from the truth. Whether their voices were higher and more nasal or structured with simpler grammar, they most likely used language to express deep emotions, complex thoughts, and social bonds. Now here's a question that often sparks heated discussion. Could Neanderthals have developed their own unique languages, perhaps lost forever to history? Or do you think our interpretations are overreaching, built too heavily on modern projections? We'd love to hear your take. Do you side with the traditional view, or do you think Neanderthals were much more like us than we've ever given them credit for? Join the conversation below.